Three men who were strangers to one another met at a country tavern. They ate and drank and talked together for a whole day. Then they decided they would travel together. One was a fine artist, a woodcarver. The second was a tailor, nimble with his fingers and skilled in cutting and sewing. The third was a teacher. He had read many books and knew far more than most people. He could teach people to read and write and speak. The three men traveled for many days. Late one afternoon, the road led up a steep mountain and through a deep forest. In the distance, the men could hear the howling of wolves. When night fell, in order to be safe from the wolves, they decided to climb a tall tree and spend the night high among its branches. Then, for fear they might fall asleep and tumble out of the tree, the teacher said that he would entertain them and keep them awake with stories. And so he told stories all through the night. While the woodcarver was listening to the stories, he decided to do some carving. So he took out his chisels and his knives and began to carve on one of the big, thick branches. He worked all through the night, and when the sun came up in the morning, the teacher and the tailor were very much surprised. There was a life-sized woman carved out of the wood of the tree. The two companions were filled with admiration. The tailor said, "I will make her beautiful clothes." The teacher said, "I will teach her to think and speak." Each one set to work. The tailor made a most beautiful dress and many other clothes for the woman. And the teacher taught her to think, to use words, and to speak. No sooner had this happened than each one of the three men said, "She belongs to me." "She belongs to me," said the woodcarver, "because I made her. I shaped her. I carved her. If it weren't for me, she wouldn't exist." "Yes, but if it weren't for her clothes, what would she be?" "I made her beautiful," said the tailor. "Neither of these is very important," said the teacher. "Unless she can speak, how can anybody know what she wants or who she is? She would just be a piece of wood with a beautiful dress on her, that's all. I taught her to speak, and I say she belongs to me." So they argued. They became very angry. They almost had a fight. But then they cooled off and agreed to leave the decision up to the first person they would meet. Along came a farmer. "Help us," the three men shouted. "Help us solve our problem. We have a woman here. Each of us has fallen in love with her. Each of us wants her. Who should have her? What do you think?" "I made her, I carved her, I shaped her," said the woodcarver. "I clothed her. I made her especially beautiful," said the tailor. "But she really belongs to me," said the teacher. "What good is a body and clothes without life, without thought? I taught her to speak." The farmer hesitated. He didn't want to take sides. He was afraid to get in the middle of such a quarrel. Besides, it was a difficult question. He scratched his head. "I don't think I can help you," he said. "I can't decide. But in the palace, in the capital city, there dwells a very wise old man. Some say that he's descended from the oldest and wisest men of the ancient world. Perhaps if you go to see him, he might give you the answer." So the three men and the woman journeyed for many, many days until they came to the capital and to the palace. They were admitted to the presence of this wise old man. He had white hair and a long white beard. There were so many wrinkles in his face that he looked as if he were 1,000 years old. He listened to each one of the men. Then he sat quietly, thinking. Finally, he spoke. He said, "I can see why the woodcarver claims this woman as his own. She wouldn't exist at all if he hadn't carved her out of the wood. So, from one point of view, she belongs to him. Now the woodcarver smiled very happily. He looked at the other men and was about to thank the old man. "On the other hand," said the wise old man, "without clothes, this woman would be very plain. The tailor has shown great skill. This is the most beautiful gown that I've ever seen, and the woman wears it perfectly. Without such clothes, without such beauty, what is a woman?" Now the tailor clapped his hands and began to dance around. He was sure that the answer was in his favor. "But," said the old man, "it seems to me the teacher has done a most important work. If he can teach a person to think, to see things, and to speak, then she can know who she is. She can know what other people are. She can learn something about the world around her. So I can well imagine that the teacher should think that the woman belongs to him." Now the teacher began to walk up and down and strut with pride. He was so sure of himself and sure of his victory. But then the wise old man spoke again. He said, "You see, there is a much deeper question. Can anybody really ever own anybody else? How can the woodcarver or the tailor or the teacher say the woman belongs to him? She belongs to herself. No man can own her. It's her life. It's her choice. She must decide. I cannot decide for her, nor can you." The woman had been very quiet through all the talk and all the arguments. Now she smiled for the first time. She walked up to the wise old man with his white hair and his wrinkles, and she said, "I thank the carver and the tailor and the teacher for all they've done. But you have done the most for me. You have given me my freedom, and I choose you." As she said this, she touched his hands with her hands. Then, as if by magic, the wrinkles in his face began to fade away. His white hair became darker and darker until it changed to black. Now he was young and very handsome. He stood up and took her hands in his, and so they joined their lives and lived together happily till the end of their days.